Welcome to the Geeks Attic, guys. What we're going to do here is talk about Shadowfall. I'm going to just go chapter by chapter, talking spoilers and all that kind of stuff. I took a bunch of notes while I read the book, and I was just going to go basically read through those notes. If you haven't seen my review, check it out. I absolutely love the book, but now I just wanted to go through and go into a lot of details about the book for those who still might not want to read it, but want to know what happens. So, in chapter 1, the book begins with a battle over the planet Triothe. It's pretty intense, guys. We have New Republic forces along with the Alphabet Squadron clearing out remnants of the imperial occupation in the dead city. No, it's not completely dead. There's still people that live there, but it used to be really well populated, but I'll get into that in a second. But the squadron still lacks complete unity and trust. Alphabet Squadron. Quell even calls Nath by a different name by mistake. Ouch. And he pretends not to notice, and later on she pretends like, oh, nothing happened. He didn't notice, then why draw attention to it? Centuries before the rise of the Empire, the planet Triothe rivaled Coruscant. The city covered half the globe, had billions of residents, but it just turned out to be a little bit too remote, but that wasn't the only issue with the planet. Coruscant, head of the political affairs. Triothe failed for a number of reasons. It was too remote, the planet minerals ran dry, and a civil war actually broke out between humans and the underclass, like aliens. Technical stuff in the book that it could get into. It's pretty crazy. But over the years, people abandoned the planet. Factories shut down, their machinery and businesses shut down for good. So jobs ran dry, the planet ran dry. But people did remain. Not everybody left. But after the events of Pandem Nigh from Alphabet Squadron, the fierce imperial Shadow Wing has gone silent and is unseen. Let's go ahead and talk about Chapter 2. Took some notes on that too. Major Soren Keyes is on the bridge of the Airy. He's distracted by thoughts of his past. Now he is the advisor of the 204th TIE unit, Shadow Wing. After the events of Pandem Nigh, the group is broken and out of sync, and Soren Keyes has to pull them back together, get a firm grip of leadership, and pull back in some of that unity. Now they go on this crazy mission to recover some old wrecked TIE fighters. It's pretty cool, pretty intense, and it irritates some of the pilots from Shadow Wing. But he tells them, hey, the ships will be restored. They're going to continue to fight the war against the rebels. So sometimes some of the guys don't recognize that the New Republic is formed, and they still call them rebels because, the Empire is still out there, spread throughout the galaxy. It was pretty massive. But yeah, they want to restore those ties, bring them back into the fight, restore Shadow Wing to glory. That's Soren Keyes' his main mission. So, all right, moving on to Chapter 3. I know we're going to be moving through a lot of these things pretty quick. Just wanted to go through and let you guys know some pretty cool events that happen in the book and help you decide if you would like to read all this stuff for yourself. Now, Chapter 3, Quell's memories are coming back to her. Random moments of her time with Shadow Wing haunt her mind. Guilt begins to pull at her conscience for keeping details from the New Republic leadership about her past. She's still having therapy with that medical droid ITO, and that has some pretty cool moments in the book too of them and their little relationship that they've kind of got going. Alphabet Squadron is called in for a quick briefing by General Syndulla. That's right, she's back for book 2. So that's pretty neat. Some intel has been recovered on Shadow Wing, but nothing is 100% certain, so it's all kind of rumors. They believe Major Rassus is in control of the Imperial Squadron leadership, carrying on orders from the previous leader, which is now deceased. Her name, they called her grandmother. Kind of a silly name for the Imperial military to call somebody, but that's what they did. A plan is concocted to take control of Triothe's capital, which is occupied by Imperial forces. Now the plan is to move swiftly straight through the controlled territory surrounding the capital to minimize civilian casualties. The team just wants to bring Shadow Wing out of hiding, expose them so they could take them out. Alright, let's talk about Chapter 4. This is where I got goosebumps. Soren Keyes kind of misses the Empire. He misses the might of the Empire, how powerful it is. He has some issues, though, with the Emperor himself, but he stands aboard his ship, the Airy. It's not a Star Destroyer. It's just a large, cramped cruiser carrier. In one of the main intersecting hallways, the Sentinel Droid stands. Okay, the Sentinel Droid is like that red-robed droid, black face. Emperor's face appeared behind the glass to execute Operation Cinder, which destroyed planets. But this droid, it just stands in the hallway, and the troops have kind of turned it into a shrine of sorts. Now, occasionally, I love this part. Occasionally, the droid, which is remaining silent this whole time, will just turn its body to face down a different hallway. And it's kind of mentioned that it's like acting as like a compass of some sorts, maybe. We don't know. It's not really very clear on what this thing is. Nobody really knows what it is. They're not knowing how it's being operated or anything like that. It's awesome. Hasn't spoken since reporting Operation Cinder to that grandmother. Okay, jumping back over to the Alphabet Squadron side, we've got Will Lark. He's still homesick. He wants to end his service to the New Republic, but he knows that now is just not the time. And just like that, we're jumping back over to the Shadow Wing side of it. I just wrote down things that I thought were important, and I wanted to talk about them. So we're jumping back over to Keyes, who finds a Star Destroyer, the Edict. It's a little older. Keyes puts it that it's past its prime, but it was under New Republic guard. However, the group has no problem taking the ship back into Imperial hands. Once aboard, an Imperial ghost crew starts coming out of hiding, like they're coming out of maintenance shafts and closets and stuff. It's pretty kind of comical, really, but yeah, it's neat that there was a crew hiding on the ship. Within hours of taking control of the ship, it was repaired and soaring through hyperspace. So Keyes and Shadow Wing now have a Star Destroyer. Now there's a slight argument once the group had a little celebration, like the ghost crew meets the rest of the Imperials. There's a little tiff that happens. Another Imperial holdout was lost to the New Republic. We get a look into the mindset and emotions of these Imperials, so that was cool. Now, a lot of them still believe that the citizens of the galaxy need the Empire, that their service, it's really tyranny, their tyranny really, truly meant something to the people, and they really truly felt safe because of the Empire. Jumping over to the Alphabet Squadron side again, there's a character I'm going to mention, Karros. She's the one that has the helmet, like cape type thing. She's mysterious, like the most mysterious character of Alphabet Squadron, but she is still a mystery, remaining silent with minimal signs of communication. She actually collects trophies from her kills, and Yrica Quell tried to tell her that there was no point, that collecting these things is only a distraction. And actually, like the most communication that Karros does to this point is just turns and like stares at Quell, making her feel pretty uncomfortable. Jumping into Chapter 5, we've got the squadrons sitting around talking to each other in the New Republic forces, talking about Vader and their stories that they've heard, talking of Emperor Palpatine. Stuff's very interesting. They wondered how Vader got his saber, which is kind of comical, but and they wondered what they would do to Palpatine had he survived. Little do they know. Karros was not with the group at this time telling the stories and drinking and letting loose. But later, once everyone had parted ways, Quell was headed back to her bed when Karros comes up to her and was kind of shivering a little bit. Something didn't seem quite right, and she spoke in a soft, guttural voice, speaking to Quell, and then turned and walked away. Didn't tell you what she said there, but I think you should read the book and find out. But I do have a theory on what Karros is. I don't think she's human. I think, here's my theory, that she is a Tusken Raider. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my theory. Moving on to Chapter 6, New Republic forces make their move against the Triothe capital, led by General Syndulla. Now, the battle on the ground is pretty intense. One of the Alphabet Squadron members is critically injured, and because this is a spoiler discussion, I'm going to go ahead and tell you who that is. Karros. Karros is critically injured, and when Aiden gets word, he goes to try to rescue her, brings a medical droid. Doesn't really work out because Aiden is stunned from behind, so then he disappears. Moving on to Chapter 7, a nice new quote regarding the Force is mentioned by a cult member, and it is, "I am guided by the Force in all my deeds." And then he says, "Through the teachings of my masters, I find harmony in its guidance." So, I am guided by the Force in all my deeds. through the teachings of my masters, and I find harmony in its guidance. That was kind of cool. Now, Quell and Nath went on a search for Aiden because he went missing, and they caught word of an auction and figured they better go ahead and check that out. These crazy people like to buy people up and sell them, so they thought maybe Aiden got picked up by these dirty slave traders. So they find out that he was sold to imperial buyers, so they went with their gut instinct, and that was the right thing to do. Chapter 8, Major Soren Keyes, advisor to Shadow Wing, is promoted to colonel. Now in complete control of the unit, he's no longer just the advisor. Now word has made it through Imperial communications that Admiral Sloan, remember Admiral Ray Sloan, that she's risen to unite the remnants and bring the fleets together. Colonel Soren Keyes is actually a little surprised that Ray Sloan had risen to the top to bring the Empire together. He never saw that one coming. So back to the Alphabet Squadron side, Quell and Nath do find Aiden. He's a little battered, but he's fine. And then we move on to Chapter 9. So while Quell and Nath were out looking for Aiden, Chas and Will, the other members of Alphabet Squadron, find a message written by Aiden had he gone missing or killed in action. To read it. Now, in this message, it included Quell's history and her role with Shadow Wing. Chas and Will not too happy about that. So when Quell returns, she's questioned by Will and Chas, and they are beyond angry. They're pissed. Division seems to find its way back into the squadron. Anger towards not just Quell, but they have an anger for Aiden, General Syndulla, and the entirety of the New Republic because they allowed somebody that was part of Shadow Wing that, took part in Operation Cinder to play a role in intelligence with the New Republic. So Colonel Keyes believes Shadow Wing is now ready to strike. He wants to strike Triothe and put an end to General Syndulla once and for all. So moving on to Chapter 10, a Star Destroyer and a cruiser carrier arrive in the Cerberon system above Triothe. Now the alarm is raised during the dispute between Alphabet Squadron, which is not happy at all with Quell and her history. Now they need to get to the sky, put all their attention to fighting the Empire as they arrive in Triothe, but they let Quell know that she's not wanted anymore in the group. They don't want her there. Even Will Lark goes as far as to say, "I will shoot your skull hollow before I fly with you again." Ouch. So Alphabet Squadron gets to their ships, they take off, Quell is left behind, not really knowing what to do at this point. Once they get into space, the battle's about to take place. Will Lark receives a transmission. A voice calls him by name from the Empire, tells him that they spoke over the Ordell cluster. In the previous book, Will speaks to a member of Shadow Wing. Blink is what they called him because I think one of his lights or something was off on his TIE fighter. But the voice tells Lark to turn back to Triothe and then disappears. And then the communications for the New Republic forces get jammed, so he couldn't reach out to the rest of the squadron or anybody else to tell them, hey, someone's talking to me from Shadow Wing. But when he turns back to Triothe, he hopes that the rest of Alphabet Squadron would follow soon. In Chapter 11, we follow each member through the battle against the Star Destroyer and the cruiser. Chas runs out of fuel and begins to drift among the debris. It's scary. Does she survive or does she not? We'll find out later on when I keep talking about it. In Chapter 12, the fight rages on. Shadow Wing has been revealed, showing themselves to the New Republic. Quell, she grabs a ship. She takes off with Aiden, and she finds this TIE fighter who's doing these crazy maneuvers that she recognizes, and she puts pieces together that is Major Soren Keyes, her former mentor and leader of Shadow Wing. He lied to her, said that he was going to be leaving Shadow Wing himself. Well, here he is fighting for the Empire once again. So Major Soren Keyes is now Colonel Soren Keyes, like I've mentioned before. General Hera Syndulla's flagship, the Lodestar, fights against the newly restored Star Destroyer, the Edict, and eventually they both get destroyed. And that leaves Shadow Wing stranded in the Cerberon system. They don't have a way out. Shadow Wing was dominating the battle, driving the New Republic forces further back, and the New Republic trap has basically backfired on them, so they're screwed. So the Empire was hit hard with the loss of Palpatine and Vader, but still they proved to be a mighty force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. New Republic military is still referred to as rebels from the fallen Empire, which I've mentioned before previously. Even the New Republic forces let it slip out a few times that, like, oh, come in other rebels type situations. Put better than that, but they let it slip out that they're still rebels as well. Shadow Wing's power is overwhelming to the New Republic on Triothe, way more than they had anticipated. So, bummer for them. In Chapter 14, I've got just a really quick note here that Chast was raised in a cult called the Inheritors of the Crystal. So she survived. She didn't die in the debris field. So, yeah, we're going to talk more about that later on. We're going to move on to Chapter 15. During the battle, Yrica, Quell, and Aiden crash land on a desert terrain planetoid. Aiden isn't doing too well at this point. He's suffering from injuries from that crash and his previous abduction where he was beaten. Quell does manage to learn a little bit about his history. Aiden was an investigative journalist and put in prison, and that's where he met Karros and the interrogation droid ITO. Now, during his time at that prison, he knew somebody else that was able to hack ITO, change his programming so ITO becomes, part of the team with Aiden and Karros. So then they escape, they get out, and here we are. So during this time on the planetoid, Aiden has a freak out. He's like kind of getting infected a little bit. Turns out he might have been an alcoholic because he's like, I need a drink. He starts freaking out. But then he's sedated by ITO, who saves the day because Aiden was about to pretty much kill Quell. But ITO was gone. He was out scoping the terrain. Comes back just in time to sedate Aiden. It's kind of surprising. But yeah, then Quell and ITO leave Aiden in a cave that they were sheltering in. ITO takes Quell to a tower that is discovered. It reminds Quell of things that she'd seen in the past, like a Jedi temple, or things that she's heard about, like a Sith temple. Because the tower's tall, black, ominous, very creepy. Then we go back to Triothe where we find Chast. Now she has found her way into a cult. They're all over the place on Triothe, but she finds one called the Children of the Empty Sun, and their leader gives little speeches, blurs the lines between the difference between the Empire and the New Republic. Pretty wild stuff. Then we move on to Chapter 16. Back on Triothe, Shadow Wing discovers the hiding spot of the remaining New Republic forces in the giant tunnels of the old mining area on the planet. However, they lose their scout upon finding the New Republic forces. Now the New Republic needs to find a new place to go where it's safer. Now the red-clad Sentinel Droid survived the wreckage, which was very eerie and another spot that gave me goosebumps. When Soren Keyes sees it, the Emperor's face is smirking behind the black glass for a moment before vanishing. And it's like arm was missing, but at the joint it was sparking. It's pretty crazy. In Chapter 17, Chast finds a pilot of Shadow Wing in the cult's palace. She wanders the halls. Okay, I gotta get this out of the way first. She's wandering the halls of this place. She sneaks away, trying to discover things, what's going on in this place. Well, she finds this meeting going on where they're putting weapons, like people that are joining the cult are putting weapons on this conveyor belt, which takes the firearms down into a furnace to burn them away because, violence isn't the answer type thing with the cult, okay? Well, she sneaks back into this room where the furnace is. It's not. Weapons are being stockpiled back there, but the members don't know about it. The higher ranking members, of course, they do. But she takes a blaster, keeps it in her pocket. Then she's wandering the halls, finds a Shadow Wing pilot in the med bay, pulls out the blaster and tries to shoot the pilot and then flees. But there's a couple occasions when they run into each other in the halls or the mess hall. The fight breaks out. Cult members have to break up the violence and separate them. But they do get a moment where they kind of talk slightly to each other where the pilot knows how to get out of the prison, just needs a couple of things, and is trying to get Chast to help out. So they're going to try to help each other break out. And, Chast does want to kill this pilot. The pilot wants to kill Chast, but they know that they can't really do that right now. They have to escape to get back to their squadrons. But yes, the pilot does know where ships are, just needs to get some codes or explosives. So it's up to Chast to either get the codes or find some explosives. Jumping back over to other members of Alphabet Squadron, we have Will, who does something really stupid after the New Republic forces have to leave the mining area. They spot several Imperial cargo ships heading to a giant mining facility, giant building. Will sneaks off. He tries to relay a message to Shadow Wing, trying to have a ceasefire. He wants peace, doesn't want anybody else to die. No one else needs to die. Let's have some peace. Well, you can't really send out a message like that. You'll be discovered. They'll pinpoint your location. Well, luckily, Nath follows Will out there. He brings along his astromech droid T5, who puts out a jamming signal to make sure that Will's message doesn't get out. There is a little argument that breaks out between Nath and Will, but it's made clear that Nath is just watching out for Will, doesn't have any bad blood between them, just looking out for him and the rest of the New Republic forces there on Triothe. We are now in Chapter 18. Quell stands in front of a tower, staring into a lens, thinking of her past. Now, this tower has a little device that basically reads emotions that one is feeling, and these biological scans that it does will unlock the door if it reads the emotions that it wants to read. Very weird, kind of complicated to describe, and probably the most silly thing about the book, in my opinion. But she stands in front of this tower trying to think of things, and ITO was damaged from the crash with Quell, and Aiden slowly starts to malfunction. Its memory is starting to fade away. But Quell and the droid work together for quite a while, trying to figure out the proper feelings or emotions that this gateway to the tower is trying to read. Well, eventually, Quell has to destroy ITO. The droid has lost its memory completely and starts to revert back to its original design, which was interrogation and torture. So Quell has a little chip on her neck that she wears from her last astromech that was destroyed. She plugs that into, or jams it, stabs it into a socket on ITO, which causes the droid to malfunction completely. After the fight with the droid, Quell gives up on the tower. She can't get it open, so she goes back to the cave where her and Aiden were taking shelter. When she returned to the cave, Aiden was awake, so they talked a little bit. She confessed more about her past, about how Soren Keyes pushed her out of Shadow Wing, not that she left on her own to join the New Republic. Moving on to Chapter 19, Chas tells a story during the cult confession time. Yep, she's still with that cult. She goes by a different name, also, I should tell you that. She makes up little stories about this other character that she's playing in the cult. But she is met by the leader, Latej, after telling this story during confession time. And actually, Chas pistol whips the leader, gets what she needs from her, such as the codes for the Shadow Wing pilots so they can make their way to the hangar bay, get some ships, and head out. But once they do get into the hangar, Chas is hit from behind by that Shadow Wing pilot. Pilot gets away, so Chas doesn't get the chance to kill the Shadow Wing pilot, and luckily for Chas, the pilot didn't kill her. So before Chas does escape into her B-Wing, the leader is awake again, comes in with a couple of other folks to the hangar, and shouts out to her, hey, you can leave if you want, but just letting you know that the seed has already been planted, and you're welcome back anytime. So Chas tells her, screw you, before she gets inside her B-Wing and takes off. So she also discovers in her ship that her music has been removed, a couple of other things have been removed, but some audio clips or tapes, whatever you want to call them, were left inside of her ship by the cult, like cult messages, I guess. So now Chapter 20, we're approaching the end. Of course, you may have noticed that I skipped some chapters that really didn't have much information to tell you. So back at the mining area at the Core 9 mining mega facility, Soren Keyes is pleased with a cargo ship that they've acquired. Suddenly, the alarms are raised during a discussion that he's having with the acting governor of Triothe. The New Republic ships are on their way to attack the facility. The governor of Triothe was pro-Empire, who this governor took control after the previous governor had died. Shadow Wing is deployed and starts to overwhelm the New Republic ships. That is until General Syndulla arrives back on the scene with Vanguard Squadron. That's right, she did not go down with her flagship. She survived. She actually had to go take care of some other business before this Battle of Triothe began. And now she's back with Vanguard Squadron to take care of business. So Chas, now back in her B-Wing, turns on her comm, finds out where the battle's taking place, and heads to the location to take care of business. So she joins the fight, reuniting with Will and Nath. Still no word on where Quell is, Aiden, or Karros. So they have no idea what's happened. Which at this point, we haven't heard anything else about Karros, so we don't really know what's happened to Karros either. Shadow Wing begins to pull back its squadron and load onto the frigate that they acquired at the mining facility. New Republic forces continue to pound the ship. They do not want this ship to get back to the other remnants of the Empire to build up their forces to strike again somewhere else. As the Imperial frigate slices through the atmosphere, they launch a heavy missile at the city of Triothe with intentions to destroy major areas with known New Republic cells. Back on the planetoid where Quell is, she manages finally to get the Black Tower door open. Inside is a ship. I know it's a little convenient. Like I said, the tower part, the emotion sensors, is just the weirdest part of the book. Don't really mind it though. But it took a while for her to figure out the controls of the ship, but she manages to do so. She left the planetoid behind, leaving Aiden's body and the remains of ITO. She finds the battle still raging over Triothe. X-Wings were pursuing the bulk freighter. She doesn't know really what's going on, but she can put pieces together. She's acting odd, thinking of her future, doesn't know exactly what to do. She knows that if she goes back to Alphabet Squadron or the New Republic, she'll probably wind up in prison somewhere now that everybody knows more about her history, that she's was part of this horrible group that wiped out a planet, multiple planets. Things aren't looking good. But it's like the Empire. Why go to the Empire? What am I gonna do? So once the Imperial frigate launches into hyperspace, so does Quell. We are now approaching the end of the book. We're in chapter 22. New Republic has taken Triothe. The governor Yadiz was captured. The New Republic celebrates the victory. Now, they may not have destroyed Shadow Wing, but they did drive them out of Triothe, which is somewhat a victory. They did not want Shadow Wing to escape. They wanted them to be destroyed completely. Didn't happen. Nath received the Bronze Nova Award for courageous efforts in service to civilian lives. He managed to stop the missile that the freighter had fired at Triothe. So, way to go, Nath. Karros has survived and healed. She's back. I have a theory. Like I told you, she's a Tusken Raider. We'll see. Never got closure on her character. She vanished for half the book. So I have a feeling in the next book she's probably going to have a much larger role. We shall see. She confessed some stuff to Erica Quell, and now Erica Quell is gone. Soren Keyes has made contact with Admiral Sloan. He is going to take the 204th, or the Shadow Wing unit, to reunite with the greater Imperial forces. So that's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see where that goes in the next book. During the conversation with Admiral Sloan, she actually calls him Major Soren Keyes. She's unaware of his rank change to Colonel. But after that communication closes down, the Sentinel Droid stands nearby, which kind of makes Keyes a little, nervous in a way, but also angry. He's upset with the Empire, or the Emperor, because the Emperor, he saw the power-hungry, greedy, evil deeds that he's done, but he likes the organization of the Empire itself. Anyway, Keyes looks over at the droid, and Palpatine's face appears and says, "You are but one of many tools." So Keyes just gets frustrated, goes up and punches the droid in the face, cracking the glass, and then Palpatine's voice says, "Operation Cinder is to begin at once." So is it just a glitch? Is Operation Cinder continuing on to phase 2? I don't know. Most likely just a glitch. But the book ends with Soren Keyes entering a holding cell, and asks someone, "What are you doing here?" And well, the response is was shocking. Got an audible gasp from me. "Lieutenant Eureka Quell reporting for duty." So Eureka Quell back with Shadow Wing, back with the Empire. I'm getting chills right now. It's like, okay, well, is that for real? Are you just messing? Did you really abandon Alphabet Squadron, or are you doing some sort of intelligence thing? Guess we're going to have to find out in book 3. So that'll do it for this chapter by chapter discussion. It's kind of fun. Here's the book right here. Got it early, got it read, reviewed last week. It was fun. I enjoyed the book quite a bit. Going to put a link down in the description box below if you'd like to purchase the book. Also a link to my review if you have not watched that already. Something that was brought to my attention after the fact, I know a guy that got the book early as well. We were talking back and forth, and he said, the 61st Infantry Unit, that's Twilight Company. So wish the word Twilight Company was mentioned in the book, because it just, 61st Infantry Unit just went over my head. So that was really cool. Can't remember what chapter that was mentioned in, but look forward to that and a bunch of other little cool nuggets that are in this book that I didn't mention. So, guys, have a good one.